Welcome to another edition of Latino Paradox. I'm Arnold Torres, and with me is Ruben Navarrette, and we always discuss issues of the day impacting Latinos, and we ask three fundamental questions. Who are we? What do we want? And what are we doing wrong? Today's topic, as a lot of people have been seeing this week, is the future of DACA students, the Dreamers. The president has indicated he'll make a decision on Tuesday. There are an estimated 800,000 students that are covered under temporary protection. They can work. They're going to school. And the president said he would announce on Tuesday. The members of Congress have said, we want to deal with it. Mr. President, let us handle it. There are several things that Congress could do. They could do a short gap, just keep it there for another 2 years. They could do it permanently. They could move one or three bills that provide relief and permanency for these students. But the reality is that this is a very, very big issue in the Latino community, and we will see what happens on Tuesday. So, our first question, in the context of DACA, what does this tell us about who we are as a community, Ruben?
It tells us that we're a community that likes to give lip service to the idea of protecting our children. It is said, it is clearly in the brochure and in the literature that Latinos value family above everything else, that they value children above everything else. In truth, though, in politics, that's not true. We don't do a very good job of honoring that commitment. We support and vote for Democrats who stick our kids into failing public schools with no accountability. We applauded a president that we voted for twice, Barack Obama, when he sent back children back to Central America, put them in baby jails, detained them, and then deported them without ever getting them to a lawyer. And then we applauded that same president when he set them up by putting out a program called DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, that essentially serves them up on a silver platter to someone like Donald Trump, who for his own evil motives and mean-spirited motives now stands to end that program. It is never a good idea, if you're undocumented, to walk into the ICE office, surrender, hand over all your information, your fingerprints, your photograph, and your home address to immigration agents. It's just not smart. And there's a lot of smart people out there who've got a lot of education and fancy degrees. I don't know how much education you have to get before you lose common sense and become stupid. But that's where we've arrived, where a lot of otherwise smart people don't see how dumb it is to participate in a program like DACA. That's what's brought us to this point, and we very much have ourselves to blame.
I think we're a group of people, for all the reasons that you've said, that reflect that desperation, that phenomenal dilemma that we're in, of what is offered is less than the whole cake. Sometimes it's a very small piece of the cake. But because we're in such a difficult predicament, we're oftentimes willing to take it. And it's very difficult to pass judgment on those types of situations, because we as Latinos have constantly been in that rock and hard place. But I think that you're absolutely right about our inability to be consistent. We took the migajas that Obama offered. Many of those students did, and the families encouraged their students, their children to take advantage of it. But there were many who didn't. So it's a very, very difficult situation, and that's what it says about us. We are desperate, and we are constantly confronted with very, very difficult choices to make. Our next question, what do we want in the context of DACA?
We want two different things that are in conflict. We want, on the one hand, comprehensive immigration reform, so we finally stop nibbling around the edges and treating the Dreamers like a special class of people, while we give the back of our hand to their parents and to others who don't walk around in caps and gowns. So we want comprehensive immigration reform that doesn't discriminate against some undocumented immigrants in favor of others. But on the other hand, we also want and have looked approvingly on a piecemeal approach that does save certain members of that community. And we're convinced, and we bought into this argument that somehow we can approach the immigration debate piecemeal. So the great tension is always between a comprehensive reform plan and a piecemeal approach. And DACA is piecemeal on top of piecemeal.
Well, I think what we want is, as you say, we want a comprehensive solution. And what we're getting is low-hanging fruit by a lot of Republicans who support the Dreamers. There is no vision. You cannot simply focus on the Dreamers and ignore their parents. It is just irreconcilable. I listened to a discussion by a Republican congressman this week that spoke of all of the beautiful things that a dreamer can do. And when he was talking, I could have swore he was talking about their parents. They were paying their taxes. They had been contributing. They had had those children who had been doing very well, and others who were doing, maybe not in college, but still contributing and doing well. And yet we don't see that treatment and that disposition to the parent population. But we are a community that at times wants to have our cake and eat it too. And we almost think that we have this power, which is Latino Paradox, this power to dictate what's going to happen. We weren't able to do that with Obama. But a lot of people were thumping their chest. So we want a lot of things, but we're not very realistic about what those things are. Now, what are we doing wrong on this issue?
We don't pay attention to the details. We're so busy working, so disgusted with politics, we don't pay attention to politics. We're not well informed. We don't listen to different points of view. We don't listen to conservative talk radio or Republicans or people who don't disagree with us, so we don't get smarter. We're not critical thinkers. We are beholden too much to the Democratic Party. We're willing to believe the worst about Republicans and the best about Democrats. I had a journalist this morning, someone who's paid to be informed, someone who's paid to follow the news, tell me, con toda la boca, that Barack Obama tried to help the dreamers and the undocumented by having meetings with stakeholders in the White House and by going to Capitol Hill to try to lobby lawmakers to pass immigration reform. That's not true. That's bullshit. That never happened. The stakeholders that they're talking about him meeting at the White House were people like Maria Elena Salinas and Eva Longoria and Latina celebrities who have no power over anything. So I'm struck and dumbfounded by the fact that a journalist could be so wedded to the Democratic Party that they missed the entire beginning of the Obama administration. They weren't paying attention. So what we do wrong is we don't pay attention, we don't think critically, and we're too beholden to one party, so we're blind out of one eye.
I can't disagree with a lot of those things that you said. I think that what we're doing wrong is that we constantly depend on others to solve our problems. We fail to recognize that the old approaches of depending on other people have not worked. We don't only suffer in the area of immigration, we suffer in virtually every policy area in this country, and we have for generations. We have to be more creative. We fail to be creative. We fail to think out of the box and to go in a different direction than what all of the other democratic orthodoxy is telling us we ought to do. And that is being done at the expense of our community as a whole, not just dreamers, but every aspect, every element of our community. So there's a lot of things on our plate that we've got to really stop and think and listen and develop something new. But these are always the complex things that our community is confronted by in this country. It'll be interesting what happens on Tuesday. We will probably do another show on this, but we want to thank you for listening and watching, and we hope that you'll continue to comment, whether you like what we say, agree with what we say, or dislike it. We want to encourage dialogue. We thank you for joining us at another edition of Latino Paradox. Take care.